Okay, we are in Brotherhood of Darkness, and we are still in Chapter 1, and this is video number 3. Andrew Carnegie embraced Lord Tennyson's vision in 1893 in his book Triumphant Democracy when he wrote, "The Parliament of Man and the Federation of the World have already been hailed by the poet, and these mean a step much further in advance of the proposed reunion of Britain and America. I say that as surely as the sun in the heavens once shone upon Britain and America united, so surely is it one morning to rise, shine upon, and greet again the reunited state, the British-American Union." 100 years later, Arthur Schlesinger, Jr. wrote an article that appeared on the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal. In October 1993, many people were concerned because we seemed to be relinquishing our national sovereignty and moving toward world government and a new world order. Arthur Schlesinger, Jr. addressed that concern. "The world of law will not be attained by exhortation. Let us not kid ourselves that we can have a new world order without paying for it in blood as well as in money. Maybe the costs of enforcement are too great. National interest, narrowly construed, may well be the safer rule. But let us recognize that we are surrendering a noble dream. Remember those lines of Tennyson that Churchill called the most wonderful of modern prophecies, and that Harry Truman carried in his wallet throughout his life? For I dipped into the future, far as human eye could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be. Heard the heavens fill with shouting, and there rained a ghastly dew from the nation's airy navies grappling in the central blue, till the war drum throbbed no longer and the battle flags were furled in the Parliament of Man, the Federation of the World." Here Arthur Schlesinger, Jr. revealed the little-known fact that both Winston Churchill and Harry Truman were dedicated to world government. Did Winston Churchill really want Great Britain to surrender its national sovereignty? Why did Harry Truman carry Lord Tennyson's poem in his wallet throughout his life? Is it possible that both men were members of the arcane societies? Most people have forgotten the strange things that happened during Harry Truman's presidency. First, he signed the United Nations Charter, knowing full well that the UN was designed to become the government of the world. Then he ceded control of Eastern Europe and China to the communists. And when the public began to question why he had betrayed hundreds of millions of people to a life of slavery, he plunged us into a no-win war in Asia. When General MacArthur told a congressman that he wasn't allowed to win the Korean War, President Truman relieved him of his command. If you study that era, you will discover that General Lin Piao, the communist leader who commanded the Chinese army that attacked our soldiers in North Korea, knew there was a secret agreement that precluded us from winning the Korean War. General Lin Piao wrote, "I would never have made the attack and risked my men and military reputation if I had not been assured that Washington would restrain General MacArthur from taking adequate retaliatory measures against my lines of supply and communication." At this point, I want to explain how Harry Truman brought communism to China. Most people believe that the nationalist Chinese lost the Civil War, but nothing could be further from the truth. General Chiang Kai-shek's armies were winning the Civil War until the American State Department placed an arms embargo on the nationalist forces, which prevented them from buying weapons or supplies anywhere in the world. Even the weapons they had previously purchased on Okinawa and other Pacific islands were blockaded. How can an army fight without weapons? It can't. Contrary to everything you have heard or read, our State Department intentionally brought Chairman Mao to power. To verify that change, I quote from a long-suppressed Senate report on the fall of China. Copies of the pages quoted are available to researchers. Institute of Pacific Relations Report of the Committee on the Judiciary, 82nd Congress, 2nd Session, Senate Resolution 366, a resolution relating to the internal security of the United States. At the end of 1945, when General Marshall left for China, the balance of power was with the Chinese nationalists, and remained so until at least June 1946. Chiang's divisions were chasing the communists northward, and the prospect for victory by nationalist China was at its highest. However, when General Marshall arrived in China, he undertook to bring about the coalition government which his directive demanded. This plan failed when coalition failed. When the Chinese government did not effect coalition by the summer of 1946, United States military assistance to China was brought to an end. Not only did the United States stop sending military supplies to the Chinese government, the shipment of war materials actually purchased by the Chinese also was halted. The Chinese also had purchased surplus equipment that remained on Okinawa and other Pacific islands. Even the shipment of this was banned. A complete embargo took effect in the summer of 1946. It was maintained at least until May 1947. General Trinault testified that the first shipment arrived in Shanghai in December 1948. Trinault further stated that the war material sent to China after the embargo did not arrive in time to aid the Chinese nationalists in the field. Admiral Cook testified that the Chinese had a number of divisions equipped with American arms. When the flow of American ammunition was stopped, these divisions lost their firepower and were defeated. Even after the 80th Congress appropriated $125 million for aid to the Chinese, shipments were delayed, and when the guns finally reached the Chinese general in North China, they were without bolts and therefore useless. Why did our State Department send the nationalist Chinese guns without bolts? Could that have happened by accident? It is impossible to read the complete text of the McCarran Committee report without coming to the conclusion that the Truman administration betrayed the nationalist Chinese and brought Chairman Mao to power. Why? Could it have had anything to do with the fact that Harry Truman carried Lord Tennyson's poem in his wallet throughout his life? I encountered the second poem when I visited my son in Cape Town in the mid-1970s. As we drove down the coastal highway that winds along the base of Table Mountain, I saw a small gray replica of the Lincoln Memorial nestled against the hillside. I was curious, so we trudged up the dusty path that led to the front of the granite monument. Stone lions guarded both sides of the stairway before us. After climbing the stairs, we passed between granite pillars and entered an area that contained a stone pedestal. On top of the pedestal sat a larger-than-life bust of a man. The expression on the stone face was stern, the eyes hollowed so their gaze followed us wherever we moved. As the cold Atlantic wind blew past the pillars behind us, I saw a poem engraved on the pedestal. The intense and brooding spirit still shall quicken and control. Living, he was the land, and dead, his soul shall be her soul. Rudyard Kipling penned those words in 1902, and they were read at Cecil John Rhodes' funeral. To quicken is to come back to life after dying, and if there was ever a man whose legacy lived on after his death, it was Cecil John Rhodes. What most people don't realize is that his legacy continues to dominate Europe and Africa, and his influence casts a dark shadow over our nation today. And we will pick up in the next video. This was part 3 of chapter 1, and we will pick up part 4 in the next video.